Hello, today we are going to look at the project structure. There are many folders inside our project. So our project root has the bin, the DB, the resource, the source, the target and test folder, and then we have configuration files as well. The bin directory is the home of the nREPL server. The DB directory is used to store all the database related files. So we have the migrations files and also associations file and the DB configuration. The resources directory is used to serve static assets over HTTP. This directory is mapped to the root of your website. So we have the public assets, the CSS, the JavaScript, the SRC folder, or the source folder contains the majority of your application source code. In the typical Coast application, it usually contains server namespace, a roots namespace, and then a components namespace for any reusable shared component. And then you can organize your root handlers in the APIs package and the site package, but you don't necessarily need to do it. The target folder is where we build our applications into a jar file. And usually it gets cleaned up and is ignored. We don't need to worry too much about it. LS is our test folder. It contains all our tests in our application. Next, we can look at the server namespace because this is where our entry point to our application is defined. When we use our Clojure CLI to invoke our namespace, this dashman function will get invoked. We call the server function under the Coast namespace, and here we provide another symbol called app and the port number. And our app symbol is bound to something else by this def form. So we're calling a app function under the Coast namespace, and we are also providing a map of routes. The value of routes is what we required from another namespace called routes. So this is the route namespace. For clarity, let's comment out this resource form, and then what we're going to do is to jacking our REPL. Now we can look at what the routes are. Here I'm going to evaluate and print the form. The route itself is a vector of vectors, and we have two different routes. This is the first route, and then we also have the second route. Every route is a vector. The first element of the vector is the HTTP method. The second is the path. And the third one is also a vector, but this vector is a vector of middlewares plus the handlers to a particular request. The routing system of Coast gives us a layer of indirections that we can define our routes and the handler separately because the lookup is just by the namespace keyword here. To give you a demonstration, let me start by running the server. I can go to the local host now. Coming back to my source site.home namespace, this is the text we're seeing at this point. Let me just change it to, and then reevaluate this namespace again. And now come back to the browser. You can just refresh this one. You can see without restarting the server immediately, we are seeing the new text. But one thing to know is that this live reloading only works for whatever you already defined there. By which I mean, if you uncomment this one and then what this does is essentially adding more routing rules to your application. And we evaluate this thing. And if you recall that we used to be able to go to to-dos. Now something wrong. The reason for this issue is because even though we rewrite the definition of route, but this app symbol is already bounded to the previous route value. So this value doesn't automatically get refreshed. So what we need to do is we need to reevaluate this thing again. And once we do that, we restart the server. Now we come back to the browser, and then we can see the new value. Thank you for watching. This episode is for the directory structure of Coast. Hope you enjoyed.